Hello beautiful people, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I'm bringing you back my guest, Jamie. So Jamie is the co-founder of Wayapa Wuurrk. If you haven't checked out that episode, I would highly recommend you to, because in that episode, you will learn how to live life amazingly. I would also highly recommend you to check out the episode of the other co-founder, Sarah. In that episode, Sarah and I talked about domestic violence and sexual assaults. So the links should pop up here somewhere. Please go check it out. Now, are you sick of pretending of the person that you are not? Are you sick of putting up masks that don't serve you anymore? If you have said yes to either of those questions, then continue watching, because Jamie truly shared himself. He was so vulnerable, so raw, so honest. He basically laid out all his cards on the table for everyone to see. If you are a male, or you know a male in your life who is not amazing at expressing emotions, continue watching as well, because Jamie is going to share many of his stories and how his life has changed since he embraced the emotional side of him, also known as the feminine side. So enjoy!
Well, before you share your story, I would love to say thank you for your time. You should show everyone your finger.
It's duct tape. So I fixed the microphone stand with duct tape, and I fixed my finger with duct tape.
So amazing, duct tapes. But please share with people, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling really great, actually. I've had a really great morning. I've had a Wayapa session, and I've had a sauna, I've had a swim, I've had a gym workout, eaten some really nutritional food, and been out doing some woodwork. So that always makes me feel lovely. Been laying in the sun watching the birds, which is a favourite pastime. We've got an amazing multitude of birds here, and we're very lucky to have a pair of nesting wedge-tailed eagles fly over our house quite frequently. So they're very majestic, one of the biggest, largest birds of prey in the world, flying over our head. So very, very, very good. Feeling very, I was going to say grounded, but I feel up in the air with them birds. So yeah, feeling great.
So funny. What did you food-wise? What did you have?
I had some avocado, some sourdough bread, some tomato, some like kimchi. You know, they do the fermented cabbage. Yeah, I love that with my breakfast.
What?
Yeah.
You have it for breakfast?
Oh yeah, I love it for breakfast. It's a great way to start the day.
I would take on that tip. Well, for those people who are listening and watching, I would highly encourage them to go onto Wayapa Wuurrk's website and read your story, because you have shared it in detail. But I would love it if you can share some of your childhood traumas with everyone.
Firstly, I'd like to say, ngata mga tuk malu ko tangganay. Kiri warang chaplong nila mereng, manganuchong warang alami, manganuchong warang mara, manganuchong warang mereng, manganuchong ngamaji. And that, in the language of my grandmother and my children's language, is to honour the ancestors of the land in which we're sharing this conversation. I usually get some gum leaves and light up the bowl just to create a nice little campfire, a virtual campfire for having a conversation and a yarn, but I can't find the lighter and I can't light it because of my fingers. So anyway, so I guess a little bit about my childhood. Grew up not knowing my dad. He left when I was a baby. Mum was a young mum. She was in hospital at 16 when she had me. So she was a young mum. And I was very lucky, because one of the stories was that my mum's older sister wanted my mum to give me up for adoption. And because of a young mum back in the 70s, you know, that wasn't the thing to do, to have children out of wedlock. And thankfully my mum's mum, my grandmother, she come in and said, no, not doing that. You've done the thing. You have him, and now you got to look after him. So I was very grateful for my nan, because I don't know where I'd be or how my adopted life would have turned out. Some adoptions are really great and some are not so great. But anyway, Mum was basically a kid having a kid. So, she was still finding her way in the world, and found out later on Mum suffered a fair bit of trauma in her childhood, and it acted out throughout her life as well. And, you know, she made some poor decisions with the partner she chose. And, you know, I grew up seeing a fair bit of family violence, and grew up being exposed to, you know, drug and alcohol affected environments quite often. And you know, my mum's one of the strongest people I know. The stuff that she went through herself, and to get through that, and she had a few very abusive partners. So it was sort of a life of moving around a lot. You know, changed schools a fair bit. You know, I suffered from separation anxiety a bit because Mum would leave me all the time with family members while she went off and partied and things like that. So I'd suffer a fair bit of anxiety, separation with my mum, and used to always cling to her, and she used to have to drag me to all parties. And, you know, I remember one night she just put me to bed real early, and it was like 5 o'clock. I'm like, it's too early to go to bed. I know she's going to a party. Anyway, I made out I was sleeping, and I saw her going up the road, so I opened up the window. I was about probably 6 years old, and I jumped out the window and I chased her up the road, and I followed her to the party, and I just found a corner and just stayed in that until she come home. So, you know, some fairly sort of, unusual sort of ways of growing up, I suppose. You know, as a result of, you know, some of the family violence that was enacted upon me, I ran away from home when I was 12 years old and went to live with my uncle. It was really hard leaving Mum in those environments that weren't good for her. But yeah, I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I went and lived with two uncles that my mum's brothers, who were just lovely, loving, caring young men. And, you know, they were bachelors. They just, you know, one was the oldest male in the family, one was the youngest male in the family. The oldest Uncle Ez, he used to listen to country and western music and have a beer on the weekend. And my youngest uncle used to listen to Bob Marley and smoke marijuana on the weekend. So there were two total separate ends of two sort of, you know, lifestyles, but they just balanced each other out. And I was lucky to grow up around those fellas. And yeah.
No wonder you have great dance moves. You started partying when you were 6.
Pretty much. Unfortunately, I went through a really big period. I was a bit lucky and I was a bit unlucky. I went through a period of using alcohol from a very young age to hide, to mask my feelings and emotions. Probably started. A lot of people don't know this, but you know, the last probably 12 months, I've taken the mask off and I've just started to really tell my story, because. You put a mask on at a very young age, and, you know, who you are inside often isn't who people see you to be outside. And so, yeah, I took a mask off about 12 months ago and started really telling my story about, I really started drinking quite heavily when I was 12 years old. And, you know, thankfully at that age, I also found boxing. So boxing helped me deal with a lot of anger and a lot of outlet, I suppose. And then occasionally on weekends, I'd start drinking heavily and, you know, wipe myself out. And I wasn't drinking socially. I was drinking to forget things or to mask or numb things. So that sort of was a very big, I guess, a big pattern in my life as I got older. I'd put a cape on and walk out the door and help everybody else get healed and get well, but I'd come home, take the cape off and fall apart. And, you know, you just do that. I did that for like 28 years, where I worked in environments where I was helping everyone else, but secretly I was falling apart because I hadn't dealt with a lot of my own childhood trauma, and it was just started an ingrained pattern. And so, yeah, so, you know, that the trauma, I suppose, you know, until you, and getting help for trauma can be very difficult to getting the right people. The mental health system isn't really well equipped to help people deal with the stuff they need to deal with. And, you know, I got involved in the mental health system. I dabbled in it with psychiatrists and psychologists in my early 20s when I stopped boxing. And I didn't have an outlet for my frustrations and anger and anxiety, and that's when I really turned to drinking. And then when I realised I needed to start to get some help, that wasn't very good. So the people just weren't I weren't connecting with the psychiatrist and that, so I just said, no, I'll just deal with it myself, and I didn't. You know, it's like having a sore tooth, and rather than extract the bad stuff out, you just put a filling on it, and it just stays there and festers away. So yeah, it's been quite an amazing last 12 months of transformation, and I'm just letting it all out now. Like it's like, it's not hiding anything, you know, it's not putting a mask on and pretending to be someone that you're not. And it is that it's okay to be not okay. And I would say this to people, but then I wouldn't bring people up and get support, because people relied on me to be the strong one, or to be the one that had it together. And the more you talk to people in the professional field of that stuff, a lot of people like that too. They don't turn for help, you know, they just carry everyone else's stuff. So yeah, that's how, you know, if you don't deal, I encourage people, younger people, if you've got trauma that you haven't resolved, keep continuing to get help in a variety of different forms. You know, obviously there's the psychologists, the psychiatrists. You know, I'm not big on pharmaceutical medication. I like to sort everything else out first. And if that other stuff doesn't work, then maybe pharmaceutical medication's for you. You know, I don't say don't do it. I just say try and balance everything else, all the other stuff out first. And then if that's not working, there's a chemical imbalance going, you know, get some short-term medical assisted support in that stuff. But yeah, so the last 12 months have been amazing. I feel free, I feel light, I feel younger. You know, I know I look 78, but I'm only 23. No, joking. I'm 48, turned 48 the other day. But yeah, I feel really good. I'm back into training. I'm going to have a boxing competition in the Masters Games in Brisbane next year. You know, box some 50-year-olds like me. So yeah, I feel really good.
Wow. That's my first reaction. Wow. And second, thank you so much for being honest. And thank you for saying that it only happened 12 months ago, how you really embrace yourself. Because for those who are listening and watching, even if you're older, doesn't matter. Like, you just share. You are 48, you said?
48, yes.
Yeah, you look 38 years old young.
If I shave this off, I do. I can take 10 years off if I shave my beard off, because I've got that youthful exuberance in, you know, glow.
Now that you have embraced yourself, yes. Yeah, thank you. And I am so proud of you and so happy for you. And I can't wait for you to, you know, share more stories in the future. But I would like to ask about the uncle side of it. Yeah. Because on your website, you said they are your role models. How do you think people can find role models, really?
Look, you know, I think that in an ideal world, it's your mum and dad. But the world isn't always ideal. We have hundreds of thousands of years of history of trauma throughout societies and cultures and lives. And, you know, in an ideal world, it's your mum and dad. In a traditional village, no matter, you go back 5,000, 10,000 years ago, uncles and aunts played just as an important role as mums and dads. You know, you had people living communally, so you had all these different amazing support structures and systems and that in place. I was also very lucky, like those two men, they provided for me, you know, anything that I wanted to be involved in, from my boxing to my football to my badminton to my basketball, you know, to my tennis, to my skateboarding. Back in the 80s, I used to get into rap dancing, break dancing. You know, if I needed something, they'd help me achieve what I wanted to achieve without any question of either you can't do it. And if they couldn't afford it, they found a more thrifty, cheaper way to give me what I needed to do, you know. So I was very, very lucky like that. But I also, you know, I grew up in a very small community of about 2,500 people. So everyone sort of knows everybody in some ways, you know. But one of my boxing coaches, he was a really big role model as well. He was, you know, married. He had 2 young sons who were probably 10 years younger than me. So I got to watch him parent, how he parented those kids. You know, obviously a lot different than today, but so I learned a lot of parenting skills from him because both my uncles never had kids. So I was like their son. So I got to see how they responded to me, and I got to see how my boxing trainer responded to his children. So, you know, I advise people whether you're into sport or the arts. I had a school teacher who was a big mentor. He was a lovely guy. You know, I really enjoyed doing writing stories. I had a really good imagination. So
Nice.
I was really good at writing stories. And he always encouraged me to express myself like that. So, yeah, it is really about identifying people who can share their values with you and who are kind, big-hearted, caring, respectful, safe to be around, and to just to, you know, hook up with them followers, you know.
So for those who are listening and watching, if you feel like the people you are surrounded with are not very kind or whatever, feel free to put yourself into that situation as well. And I kind of want to say something. So personally, obviously, everyone would have good and bad mentors in their lives. But I always look at everyone as good mentors, even though they give you not amazing experience. But at the end of the day, it's a lesson learned as well, because then you can learn about the things that you don't want to be and the lessons that they have gone through. And you can be like, okay, well, that is not the type of life that I want to have. So I guess, yeah, like you said, you know, surround yourself with kind people, but also look at those people who are not as amazing as a learning lesson as well. Is your mom still around?
Yeah, she had some health issues last year, but she bounced back from them, and she still lives up in Gippsland.
Nice. And how is your relationship with her?
It's good. Mum and I have got. I'm her first child. My mum's non-Aboriginal, and my dad was Aboriginal. And I've got 2 other brothers, and I had 2 other sisters. One who's passed away through a drug overdose. Which wasn't good for her. But we probably don't talk as much as we should. But you know, we know that we're only a phone call away if we need to have a yarn. So, but yeah, so you know, when Mum and I grew up, you know, Mum was quite young, and you know, she was good fun. I'm a real teaser. I like to tease and stir and have fun with people. Mum used to do that all the time to us kids. She'd always tease us. She'd hide stuff from us, or she'd, you know, we'd say, "Oh, can we have an ice cream?" She's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll buy you 10 of them if you like." And we're like, then we knew that wasn't going to happen. Or she'd say, I said, "Mum, can I have some money?" She goes, "Yeah, sure, go out to the money tree at the back and just pick some money like it grows on trees." And you know, as a kid, I used to run out there looking for the money tree. I was like, "There's no money tree." Or she used to, you know, I don't know if you don't see it much anymore, but postage stamps, how small they are.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'd lose a tooth, my mum could sharpen a grey lead pencil and she'd write a whole letter on the back of a stamp. And she used to say that the tooth fairy wrote a letter saying, "Oh, I've only got 50 cents today, so I'm sorry that's all you're getting for your tooth." And for years I believed that the tooth fairy was real because no one could write that small and it'd be so legible. But that's what Mum used to do. Oh, we used to play poker, I used to play cards, and she'd sit me with my back to a mirror so she could look in the mirror and see my hand, and then I'd lose all the money and she'd start laughing and I'd work it. Yeah, and she still does stuff like that. She's a real joker. So that's, I think, where I get my sense of humour from. But
yeah, nice. I'm still very surprised about what you shared though. How you only really embrace yourself 12 months ago. How, you know what? I want to touch on that. How are you feeling?
At the very start, so 12 months ago when I was like, nah, I've just had enough. I'm not pretending anymore. I just fell apart. I just had everything going on. Everyone was like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's doing all these amazing things and he does all this for everything else. And then behind the scenes, I just fall apart and collapse. And I just got tired of doing that. You know, I got tired of living this life of hiding who I really was, which was someone that wasn't always doing okay. For most of the part, I do really good, but sometimes I wasn't. But, you know, and it's like people's social media feeds. You only ever see the highlight reels, you know. So for once, it's just about saying, you know what, the highlight reels are there, but so are the low light reels, and this is life. And, you know, so at the very start, you know, when I just said, no, that's it. I'm out of everything for a while. And I pulled back from everything. And I become a recluse before we're even in lockdown. So I'm handling lockdown really well because I actually took 6 months off and just stayed at home and just went and saw doctors and counsellors and, you know, started to eat properly well again and, you know, getting fitter and that. So I at the start I sort of didn't know who I was. I was like, well, who am I? Who am I? If I've taken this mask off, who's behind the mask? Yeah. And when I look in the mirror, the guy's still there that I know. You know, I think about my childhood a lot because in amongst some of the bad stuff, there was some really good stuff too. Like, you know, some of my favourite memories of either going mushrooming with mum or, you know, I used to do a lot of hunting and gathering for our family, so rabbit trapping, fishing. You know, mum and I used to go and put nets out, which isn't illegal today. And it wasn't legal back then either, but we used to catch a heap of fish together and, you know, all these experiences that I have. So when I took the mask off, there was still me there, but there was a part of me that like, I need to just sit in who I am and redefine myself again. And it wasn't a lot of changes, but there was some changes just about saying no to people. You know, one of my biggest things I couldn't do was say no to people that asked me for something, and I'd break my back to make it happen or make it work, you know. And, you know, I dealt with stress and anxiety poorly, you know. So today I said to everybody, you know, people want me to be involved in stuff, and I go, nah, not doing it. I'm having some time off, and I don't know whether that's 12 months or, you know, 12 years, you know. As a mentor, I was like, I just need some time to find myself again, and, you know, maybe I'll go back into that space, maybe I won't. But so, yeah, I've finally learned to say no, and I'm putting myself first. Yeah, so after 47 years, I've finally learned to say no. So it's never too late, people. That's what I'm saying. It's never too late to be a better version of yourself, and it's never too late to change your life around. So
yes, I can't stop smiling. I'm just so happy for you. Honestly. For those people who are listening and watching, if you feel like you're pretending to be somebody, which is very normal, I feel like a lot of people out there are feeling like they need to pretend to be somebody so they can fit in. Look, you are not alone on this. A lot of people are pretending, and like what Jamie just illustrated, at first you're gonna feel super lost. You're gonna be like, who the heck am I? But it's okay. You will find your way. And there are people who have been through this. And yeah, you can reach out and they will go through it with you as well. So thank you so much for being so brave and sharing your story. Now, I feel like a lot of males out there are not as open as you. So what would you encourage the males out there to be more embracive about emotions?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, we live in a society where, and I think there's probably been a few centuries of this expectation of men to be stoic, to carry, you know, to carry the burden and to be the everything to everybody, and, you know, a lot of cultures provide. And that's what I used to laugh at that whole thing. You know, my stepdad used to go to work and earn the money. He'd get up at 6 o'clock and come home at 5 o'clock. But my mum was up at 4 o'clock, lighting all the fires, cooking all the food, and then she wouldn't be in bed until 9, 10 o'clock. But yet he'd say, well, I make the money. And it's like, you only make the money because mum does everything else at home, washes your clothes, cooks your food, grows all your veggies, lights all the fires. It's like, that used to really get under my goat when he used to pull that card out. But anyway, it's another story. But yeah, I say this to men is that, it's not weak to ask for help, and it's not weak to get support. It's not weak to cry. It's not weak to break down. It's not weak to say, I'm not okay. It's not. It's actually a strength that we don't often identify with. It's a strength that is that real inner strength to balance out who you are, but you're not gonna. And I know personally, when you hold all that stuff in, it just doesn't. It's not good for you. And scientists have proven it, that it actually is not good for your cells in your body by storing stress, anxiety, responsibility, pretending. It's not good for you. So, getting some support, whether it be a friend or, male or female, whether it be a teacher or, get some counselling. Like, there's so much counselling available now. There's, Beyond Blue, there's, Lifeline, there's all these. And I know that they're very impersonal. I know that. And it's not my favourite way of talking to people. I'd rather talk to someone face to face. And I'm, lucky enough now that I've got, elders. I've got two amazing elders. They're in their 70s. And they'd always say to me, if you're having trouble, ring me up. And I know that they'd be dealing with a lot of stuff. So I wouldn't ring them up and put my problems on their problems. So I wouldn't talk. But then, now, especially there's a couple of other men sort of my age, and one fellow that's a bit younger, Dwayne, and another fellow's my age, Jack. I just ring them up and go, hey, Braz, I'm having a not very good day today. I know you're probably dealing with a lot too, but I need to unload. And they go for it. And they know not to take all my stuff while they're dealing with their own stuff. And I say the same thing to other men. If I don't answer the phone, it's because I'm dealing with my own stuff, but I'll get back to you when I can support you. But have 3 or 4 people in your life that you can reach out to. Men, talk, get it out there.
Thank you for saying that. And it's so important to really unload all these emotions. And for the listener, I guess, not to take on their issues. I find that a lot of people, they will try to be great listeners, but they accidentally take on other people's issues. Now, that's another thing that we can talk about next time. But you know how before you talked about separation issues with your mom? How did you, are you still overcoming that?
A little bit, I suppose. I suppose the biggest thing was I ran away from home. So actually I separated from her. and then I moved out of the state and lived in Alice Springs, and then I separated right a long way from her. But yeah, look, I got to the point where I understood why Mum, was the way she was, and the things, her life was her life. So, look, and it's again about forgiveness as well. Mum didn't mean to put me in those environments or those situations because she was dealing with her own stuff. The people that were in those environments were dealing with their own stuff, whether it's right or wrong. And one of the things I've learned to do is forgive people. I don't have to be best friends with them. But for my own well-being, it's that, I love that old saying, hating someone is like drinking poison and hoping for them to die. It doesn't work like that. They could be living their best life. So by you hating on them, you're only making yourself unwell. They couldn't care two cents about you. So just let it go. Just forgive them and let them go. You don't have to be best friends with them or hang around with them. But so yeah, when people do wrong in your life, I think you have to forgive them, but also it's also about not judging as well, because you don't know what they were going through when they did the things that they did. So, it's just understanding that, luckily enough, now as an adult I can remove myself. It's unfortunate for kids that get trapped in those environments.
Yeah. So how can people deal with parental separation issues if they do have any?
Yeah, look, one of the things that I tried to do was sit down and talk to Mum about it, but Mum just didn't want to address it, and that's okay, because that's just where she was. She just didn't want to talk about it. And I had to, it's like my dad, I got to meet my dad when I was 16 for the first time, and, and then met him again. I've only met him a couple of times in my life. And, he passed away just when my daughter was born, so I didn't really get to spend any time with her. But, there were so many questions that I wanted to ask him, but I couldn't because he'd passed. And there's so many questions like, why did you leave? And why didn't you come and save me? And, why weren't you around to teach me stuff? And, but I had to let that go because I can't ask him now. I can talk to family members, but they're not him. And again, I'm not going to judge my dad. He had his own issues and he had his reasons for not coming into my life, and you hear all stories that he wasn't allowed to or he didn't want to, and it's all irrelevant, and so I think that I just think come to that point where either you can communicate with your family about your feelings, and sometimes you got to also understand that your family might not be ready to talk about it either. So you need to find other people that you can unload with, like you said before, Ting. It's about getting it out of your cells, getting it out of your body, and into that space, because holding it just becomes too much of a burden.
Yeah, that is. Sorry, I need to take a moment to take in all the information. So for those who are listening and watching, if your parents are still alive and if you have issues with them, I really would encourage you to be brave and not to be so fearful to ask them questions. Because if you never ask, you would never know. And people shouldn't assume. Like, you will forever question in your head, and then you will make up your own stories, which may not even be true. And then, so yeah, like, you don't want to wait till, someone has passed, like Jamie, and he never got a chance to ask all the questions that he wanted. I also want to say a huge thank you for making time for me when you are trying to take time off. I really appreciate it. I feel that in all aspects of life, if you have more self-respect, when did you gain your self-respect, actually?
Oh, yesterday. I think it's something that you go through life, and especially that's one of the things that the psychological world will tell you about the family violence world, that childhood trauma impacts you for your whole life if you don't unpack it. And at times you grow to have responses to situations that might not always be the right thing. And I had a really, really great uncle. I used to always say, I keep making the same mistake, and he used to shake his head and goes, no, it's not the same mistake. And I said, oh, what do you mean? He said, oh, because it's not, you make it once. When you do it once, it's a mistake. Twice, it's a choice. And you are choosing to not take the better path. And I'm like, okay. So that's that accountability. So by saying, I continue to make the same mistake, you're letting yourself off the hook. And the real accountability is, no, you're making the wrong choices and the wrong decisions, that you've made a mistake once, right? So you're walking along and you trip over a rock, right? I didn't say it as a mistake, but you should observe where that rock is, so that when you walk past there again, you don't trip over it again, because you should have learned from that experience. So, I think self-respect is having a really true sense of self, and forgiving yourself as well for your bad choices, your bad decisions, or your mistakes that you've made in your life, and and committing and to growing and changing, so that you can separate yourself from a poorer version of yourself to a better version of yourself, having a high vibration and making better, clear decisions. And for me, it's a personal journey. I don't know. I can't tell you. It's a really great question. I feel good about myself today. I looked after myself this morning, and I've done really good things, so I've respected myself, I suppose. But I think it's a daily question that you need to ask yourself. That's a good one. I expect a question like that from Oprah or Ellen or Dr. Phil. So
maybe I can be Oprah or Ellen.
Maybe you can be Ting. Don't try and be them. Just be you. But you could be an equivalent. You could have your own show. I'll be your first guest. This is a test run now, but we'll get you on some TV station and we'll go for it.
Yes, thank you. I would love that. But you know how some people, like you said, I think you illustrated very beautifully. The first time is a mistake, but the second time is a choice. But then some people, unfortunately, they just keep on repeating their mistakes because they're not very observant. So how can people, I don't know, start being more observant?
Look, at the end of the day, you've got to gain the tools and the awareness as to why you're making that poor choice or that poor decision every time. You've got to keep going backwards in the steps that say, what gets me to this point, and for why I make this decision again that I know that's not great for my life. So, taking those steps back and definitely talking to people, and honest people that can be honest with you. And sometimes people don't want to hear the truth. They just want people to sugarcoat stuff, and it doesn't do you any good. So I'm lucky enough to have some good friends and people who will just say it's, I don't know why you're doing that, because that's not the best version of you, and you shouldn't be reacting or responding like that. And having people around that are honest with you, whether it be a counsellor or a psychologist, or having a friend or a family member or a mentor, just be able to pull you up and say, come on, it's happened again, but why? Let's work out why it keeps happening. Let's go back through the steps. What leads you to that point? So
what are you doing daily or weekly to keep yourself on track?
Take Wayapa, for example, the lifestyle of Wayapa. As the co-creator of it, I wasn't living my best version. I wasn't always eating properly. I wasn't moving or exercising. I'd do the practice when I did a workshop, and because I had so much other stuff on, so I wasn't living the most Wayapa lifestyle that I could. So the last 12 months, Wayapa, the physical practice every single day, the meditation every day, having the time to prepare good, healthy meals, because, it is that correlation. You are what you eat. And if you're going to, have 90% of your diet bad food, that's what is going to impact on you physiologically and psychologically, because you're not feeling good. You're going to get irritable and tired and respond and react and make poor choices. So definitely having a much healthier diet and an exercise regime has definitely helped me out. Focusing on things that I really enjoy, like woodworking. I love woodworking, making clapping sticks or bowls or boomerangs or things like that. I love sewing. I love Yes, I love sewing. We make traditional possum skin cloaks. One of my aunties, Auntie Zelda, taught me how to sew those cloaks up by hand. I know, see, you wouldn't think that, would you? I love motorcycles. I love riding my motorcycles. It's a real sense of freedom for me. I used to own horses, but they were a little bit too hard to keep. But a motorcycle is a little bit like riding a horse, but not quite the same. But I do a variety of different things that that really make me feel good. And I love camping. We haven't been camping for a long time, but I love getting out in nature. I can't prescribe nature enough for people. I really can't. Going and spending time in nature, being fully immersed in it. So scientists tell us that it works for us, but your spirit tells you first before science tells you how good it makes you feel. I'm hugging lots of trees. I'm doing things like my childhood, I want to start climbing trees again. When I get out in the bush, I want to start climbing trees and get right up the top of the tree and hopefully don't fall out. But I'm a little bit heavier than I was when I was a kid. But anyway, it was one of my favourite activities, climbing trees. I loved it because I could just get up, So, all those things, that's what I've been doing.
Amazing. Well, can you please tell me what would be the 3 things that you have learned in the past 12 months?
3 things. It's okay not to be okay, and to tell someone that you're not okay. I think that's a really big point. Be your authentic self.
Is that the second one?
Yes, that's number 2 then. Number 2 is to be your authentic self. And number 3 is spend time in nature. I just can't prescribe that enough. I can't say that how much that is healing. It really is. And whether you vocally talk to nature and tell nature your problems, no one else wants to hear. If no one else wants to listen to you, nature will always listen to you. Go and talk to a tree or a rock or a river. That'll listen to you, yeah? And again, you're getting it, you're verbalizing it, you're getting out of your body, and you'll feel better. So I'm very lucky to have an amazing person like Sarah in my life. So she gets to hear all my fears and my anxiety and, you know, all my worries, but you know, she gets to hear all my funny jokes too, so it balances it out. But yeah, if you haven't got someone in the immediate, go and talk to nature, because she will always listen to you. She's
And
our mother.
you are not crazy for doing so, by the way.
No, you're not. You're not. Some people might tell you are, but that's because they need to talk to nature more and they're too
Yes.
scared to. Yeah.
Yes. So for those who are listening and watching, I just wanna hope you're really enjoying this, because Jamie honestly is putting himself, like literally himself, out here and being so brave. And especially for the males out there, honestly, see how happy he looks. You look angry.
I know. It's either I look like Mike Tyson or I look like Jim Carrey. There's no in between. I'm a happier version of Dwayne Johnson. All right.
There you go. But yeah, like honestly, it is really liberating to just see yourself and let all the emotions come and embrace them, and it's okay to not be okay and know it. Oh, you're amazing, Jamie. Thank you.
I just think that I'm a human being. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and you know, I just think that we all just need to love ourselves. I know Sarah really talks about that a lot. I'm not great at the mirror work. I don't like to look into the mirror that much and tell myself how much I love myself, and I need to do that more. I know that. And apparently, preferably without any clothing. That's supposed to be the best way to do it. Love your whole self, no matter how you look, which I think is important. And to forgive yourself too. I think one of the biggest things that we can do gets trapped in continually beating ourselves up for our past, you know, and just like you've got to forgive others and let things go, you've got to forgive yourself and be a better version of yourself. So
yes, totally. I also want to mention a point. So whoever that's out there who owns a business or feel like you have something that you're working on, and then you feel like you are pretending to be somebody, it's okay to not be the label that you have been putting yourself in, because you will actually put more pressure on yourself. And I actually spoke to a psychologist. I interviewed a psychologist, Tantea. Do you know her? But anyways, she was also being honest. She said herself also talked to a psychologist as well. And I just want to remind people that we are only human. Like we, just need to embrace the others, the many sides of us. Yeah. Well,
yeah, great point.
thank you. Other than Wayapa's service, how do you think people can stay connected with themselves, other than Mother Nature as well?
Definitely having a break from technology and social media. I think that's really an important part of humanization of whether it's reading a book or whether it's just sitting or meditating or just ringing someone up and having a talk to someone firsthand rather than text or chat or WeChat or TikTok or whatever else is the latest thing. Humanize yourself, rehumanize yourself and your relationships with people. Smile and say hello to strangers, as silly as it sounds. It could be the only nice word that someone hears that day, or it might be the only smile that someone sees that day, and it's yours. It doesn't cost anything to chuck a smile and say how you going. And some people might go, yeah, they're a weirdo, but they'll go home and go, that was lovely that person said hello and smiled at me. And it's the same as when someone does it to you. So that I guess I always talk about nature's connection, but the human connection is really important too. In a world where we're disconnecting more and more for lots of different reasons and ways.
Yes. Now that brought me want to say something, because everything is contagious. So if you can just smile, the other person will smile to the other person too, to other people. If you want to be kind, it is also contagious. Now, if you want to be sad, that is also contagious. So please be aware of the things that you want to put yourself in, I guess. And yeah, remember that everything is contagious.
Yeah, it is.
Well, before I ask you my last question, is there anything that you feel like I didn't ask or you would like to share?
No, you've done a real Oprah and covered a whole range of really in-deep, poignant questions. So I think you've done an amazing job. So yeah, I'm happy with the conversation. But yeah, so what's your final question, Ting? What would you like to ask me?
I would love to ask. Well, you already put out many things that people can do for each other. But I still would love to know what other things that we can do so we can be there for each other.
I think the biggest thing you can do for other people is to take care of yourself. Because, well, see, there's a mic drop. I'm out. See, Barack Obama, I'm out. You cannot help anyone else when you are depleted of all energy and emotions and love and support. The best thing you can do for other people is to take care of yourself, because it is that whole analogy of the cup thing. If your cup's brimming with revitalization and emotions and energy, people can put a spoonful in and take it, and you just keep filling it up and it's full. But if you don't do that good stuff for yourself, people keep taking spoonfuls out, and by the cup's getting lower and lower and lower. There goes your energy, there goes your emotions, there goes your feelings, and then you're empty and you got nothing left. So that's my number one thing. If you want to look after others, take care of yourself.
Totally. Thank you for bringing that up. I also want to say that when you are saying yes to other people, you are saying no to yourself.
Oh, that's a mic drop. Oh, that's powerful. Oh, see?
It is okay to make time for yourself. It's definitely not selfish. So yeah, thank you, Jamie, for being you, and thank you for being so honest. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity to have these conversations. They're very important conversations. So I'm very honoured to have these conversations with anybody, with you, with your deadly questions, your amazing questions. So yeah, and to everyone out there, please take care of yourself, look after yourself, because you are all equally as important as every other human being and living thing on the planet.
Wow. I don't know how else to put it, but wow. A huge thank you to Jamie for being so honest, for being so raw and vulnerable, for being brave to share his stories, to share the fact that he finally stopped pretending who he wasn't only 12 months ago. He also illustrated how it really doesn't matter how old you are. It is never ever too late to be your authentic self, to continue to discover all the layers of yourself. It takes time and it also takes work. But really, it is so liberating to just be vulnerable and be true to yourself. So who are you pretending to be? Are you embracing all the sides of you? Are you willing to uncover your childhood traumas? Oftentimes, we really just need to offload our emotions. If you're struggling to find someone to talk to, like what Jamie said, speak to Mother Nature. And also remember, it is okay not to be okay. And it is okay to ask for help. You are not weak for doing so. I highly encourage you to write forgiveness letters if you have someone in your life or people that you feel like you can't forgive. It be a letter to an old friend, or maybe your parent, or maybe even to yourself. Like what Jamie said, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person may die. That doesn't make sense. So that is all. Start forgiving more and start loving ourselves so we can love those around us. Now don't forget to subscribe, click the thumbs up button if you have loved it, and share it with someone because you never know what they're going through. If you are unsure where to start your self-love journey, click here. Or you can also click here to listen to more inspiring and amazing stories. And remember, you are amazing and you are not alone. And I will see you next time.